Welcome to the DFL Breakdown, presented by GrizLeeGear, with your hosts, Lucas Ford and Ricky Epperson.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the DFL Breakdown, the #1 cartoon side character themed, league-specific, weekly fantasy football podcast in the world. Just me again here with you. Had another early morning recording experience here Ricky couldn't make, but in any case, still excited to break down exactly what's happening in the Dimmadome. Week 9 is in the books. We had some exciting matchups this week, some crazy games in the NFL. That Bears-Bengals game was perhaps the craziest football game that I've seen in my lifetime. And that is definitely saying something. And so that meant a lot of points in the Dimmadome as well. Crazy matchups, and we've also hit the trade deadline. Getting to that part of the season here, things are wrapping up and locking in. So there's been a flurry of activity, people trying to get their things squared away and everything in order to make a run at the end of the season. And we'll see how successful that was. But first, we got to get into our game breaker. We got to get into what happened in Week 9 before we start looking ahead here. So let's get into the game breaker, and we can talk about exactly who just completely blew the doors off in Week 9 here. Let's get to it.
I'm coming! Here I come! Game breaker.
All right, I mentioned that that Bears-Bengals game, and Caleb Williams was a huge part of it. 44.7 points for Caleb. That's a game-breaking performance if I've ever seen one. They came back and won that game with 30 seconds left after it looked like they had lost that game with a minute left to the Bengals. Some late game heroics from both sides. Onside kicks recovered, huge gaffes, giant fumbles. And then at the end of the day, a giant Colson Loveland touchdown to seal the deal. Caleb Williams, 44.7 points in Ricky's huge 193-point week versus Chris. You could see, as usual, Chris had some bench warmer of the week action with Rico Dowdle down there. Joe Flacco was a bench warmer of the week, part of that same game like we were talking about. He was pretty close there as well. Tyke had a couple big performers here, and Ricky also had Christian McCaffrey doing Christian McCaffrey things, being part of that 193-point performance. But Caleb Williams is our game breaker of Week 9 in the Dimmadome. Let's get over to the score summary, and we can talk more in depth about Ricky and Chris's matchup and the rest of the matchups that happened this week in the Dimmadome.
Score summary.
All right. Here is that matchup between the recently renamed FBI versus it was the Tampa Trap House. Now they're homeless losers. The FBI took the Trap House, repossessed it, and kicked all of these strung out football players out. And yeah, it was a big performance from Ricky. He kind of got it all over. T. Higgins was also a huge part of that Bengals Bears game. Basically, if you had pieces of that, you were probably doing well this week, because everybody was going nuts except Rome Odunze in that game, who completely goosed, as we'll talk about as we get to Leemon's team. But for now, we're talking about Ricky versus Chris. The median on this week was 132 points, so Chris didn't quite get there, taking the 0-2 loss on this week. Poor performance from Dak Prescott, only got 17 there. Bijan Robinson was held to less than 50 rushing yards. Still got plenty of work in the passing game, but not quite enough to do it for him there. James Cook was okay, but not great. Ladd McConkey only 9 points. Jalen Waddle actually did better than Ladd McConkey, but not by a whole lot. Tucker Kraft tore his ACL this week and is out for the season now, and that is super disappointing for Chris. And even though Khalil Shakir got him 11, his man Nick Benito only 1 point, Kyle Hamilton only 6.5. Just real rough stuff for Chris on this week. Ricky had that big Caleb Williams performance. CNC we talked about as well. Woody Marks only putting 2.7 up, but that was pretty much him and Darnell Mooney were the two worst parts of his team this week. Everybody else putting big points up. Davante Adams, I wouldn't be surprised if he had the most touchdown receptions this year so far. That's just me off the top of my head guessing, but that dude is catching multiple touchdowns every game, it seems like. He's just open in the end zone, and that's kind of been his deal for a long time. So Davante Adams putting up 23 for him is a big deal, and 193 I think is one of the top scores of all time. So big week for Ricky here, trying to heat up as he gets into the late part of the season. He's 11-7 in the top half of the leaderboard and looking to stay there. Chris is at 8-2, so effectively 9-9, right in the middle of the leaderboard. And as we get into the standings, we'll see how that looks for him. All right, let's move on from that matchup over to the Sleepers versus the Retardinals. It was Artie versus Sal in this one, and Sal took home the dub. Artie did manage to break the median on this one here, so he did take a win home still himself, but not the 2-0 like Sal. And Sal kind of stopping a little bit of a slide here. He had definitely been dropping some games in the last few weeks, but this is a return to form from him, and you can see why. He's got Puka back, he's got JSN back, Sam Darnold putting up 35.2 points. Sam Darnold didn't have an incomplete pass in the entire first half of that game. He looked incredible. He's been really accurate. He did throw an interception, but other than that, it was pretty much a perfect game from him there. 35 points from him is huge. Ashton Genty putting up about 20 in that heartbreaking loss to Jacksonville. And then, his wide receiver core doing big numbers as usual. Everyone else wasn't really doing anything super exciting or notable. Jack Campbell, who we picked up this week, was good. 14.5 points for him there. But nothing crazy or special out of the other guys besides his main core up at the top here. Over on the other side, you had Jared Goff scoring 23.3 points. ETN put up 15.5. Also got almost 19 out of Amon-Ra St. Brown and almost 15 out of Nico Collins. That's about what you're expecting out of those guys. Dalton Kincaid with 6 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. Big day for him. And even Stephon Diggs finally getting a touchdown himself as well. So Nick Bolton was good for him, but other than that, a disappointing day from Micah Parsons, Chris Olave, and J.K. Dobbins. Had him miss the points he needed to get to by about 11 there. So good week from Sal. Still a decent week from Artie as well. These guys are both hanging out towards the top of the leaderboard at 13-5 and 12-6 respectively. All right, let's go to the Bower of London versus the Retarded YNs. This is Eric versus Dylan, and Eric pulling out a big win here. We saw that he had some pretty high flyers in that, game breaker screen here. Drake London with almost 40 points on the day. The hat trick. He got 3 touchdowns. Same thing with Brock Bowers. 3 touchdowns on 12 receptions for 127 yards. His first full game back. Eric has missed him dearly. DJ Moore got a couple touchdowns. He scored on an end around. He didn't score at first, and then the Bengals challenged it, saying he fumbled it out of the end zone and it should be their ball. They reviewed it and said, no, not only did he not do that, he scored. So the Bengals challenge led to a call being overturned into a Bears touchdown, and DJ Moore benefited from that. So thank you, Bengals. Bobby Wagner with 7 points there. Nothing crazy, but a middle-of-the-road IDP performance. And yeah, I mean, the The three big deals here were really Drake London, Brock Bowers, and DJ Moore, with a little bit of Michael Pittman action as well. Romeo Doubs was good too, but down week from Patrick Mahomes, down week from Alvin Kamara. Tony Pollard also not really quite doing it for him there, but his other guys were enough to get him across the finish line. I believe he was one of the top scorers on the week anyway. Dylan, on the other hand, he got his poop point here. He sent us his picture in nice and early. Didn't want to play any games this week and sent it to us on Thursday. Love that, Dylan. Appreciate you. Got your poop point there. Instead of 104, you're at 105. Bo Nix with 22.5 points. Barely beat Houston without C.J. Stroud. That was kind of a boring game to watch. Only 18-15, but Bo Nix still ended up getting the job done. 5.8 points out of Jahmyr Gibbs. He's had a couple off games this year, and this was definitely one of them. Just couldn't quite get it done versus Minnesota. Tyjae Spears, 9.2 points. Acceptable, but not really a big contributor towards a win. Jamar Chase with 17 points. That was a big game, like we said, for everybody involved, except Jamar Chase wasn't really the headliner there. Only 6 receptions for 111 yards. Just kind of quietly did his job. Gadsden has still been great. 11.8 points for him. 10 points for Sutton. But everybody else not really doing it for him here, leading to that 100-point score and a loss against both the median and against Eric here. This brings Dylan to 9-9, and this brings Eric up to 8-11 here. It's 6-10-2, so I'm sorry, it's 7-11. I can do math. Eric is climbing his way out of the bottom of the league. He's been scoring some good points recently and is trying to keep it going. If he can keep his guys healthy, these guys in the middle have been super consistent when they're on the field here. Drake London, Michael Pittman, and Brock Bowers, a great core to his team. We'll see if they can keep producing here. Let's talk about Chief Trump versus Better Off Gooning. That is Leemon versus Riley here, where the Mr. Chief Trump here took home the win, but
Wet Noodle Fight of the Week.
It was a wet noodle fight, man. Not even getting to the median for either of these guys. Riley's sub 100, and Leemon only getting 122 points here. Leemon had Jordan Love going this week, only 9 points out of him. They lost to the Panthers and kind of looked terrible, which was crazy. I mentioned that Rome Odunze goosed him in that game that scored 89 points in total. I don't know how that happens, especially with how good Rome Odunze's been this year, but there you go. 0 receptions on 3 targets. Brian Thomas, I believe he left this game early, only 3 receptions on 5 targets there. Been disappointing for Leemon since he's picked him up from Ricky in that trade. Kyle Pitts, only 7.8. Had a good week out of Torrey Horton, picked him up and plugged him in, got 2 touchdowns, but wasn't enough to bring home the win, especially with guys like Brian Branch only putting up 5 points. Max Crosby's been great for him, 17.5 there, but Calvin Austin, 10.6, and other than that, a lot of red through here, and that's what happens when you miss the median. Not quite as bad as Riley on the other side. He did get 33.5 out of Lamar, which he was excited about, but his Cowboy core here, 7 points out of Jameson, that's Javonte Williams. Only 7 points out of him and 11 points out of George. In that loss to Jacoby Brissett and the Cardinals, who Jacoby Brissett is now their quarterback 1 for at least the next 4 weeks. We'll see if he can continue to do what he's been doing there. Keon Coleman only 3 points, 2 receptions on 2 targets. George Kittle only 7 points, 4 receptions for 32 yards. Troy Franklin's had some hot and cold days. This was definitely on the cold side. Just a lot of red at the bottom, and that's what you expect when you're under 100 points here in a wet noodle fight. Just a lot of disappointment. If it wasn't the two-time MVP Lamar Jackson, then it wasn't doing it for Better Off Gooning. So these guys are both kind of close to the bottom of the leaderboard, but Leemon pulling away a little bit here with this win. Going 1-1 in the week brings him to 6-12. And it brings Riley down to 5-13 with his 0-2 loss. Let's talk about my matchup against Corey here. It was a close one. The Ball Hogs versus the Apple Bottom DeJeans. Did end up losing this one by 7 points, it looks like here. So definitely close, but managed to scrape by on a median win. And Kimani Vidal really cost me on this one. My IDPs weren't great either, but could have plugged in RJ Harvey and gotten the 16, so that definitely hurts. I lost Travis Hunter in practice the week before this one here. He had a knee problem, has been put on IR. I also didn't get Trey Hendrickson for this one, which I really wanted to try to plug in, so had some holes that I needed to fill. Thankfully, Ginkel was back. And I've had Landry for a few weeks, but they didn't get it done for me. And only 2 points out of Kimani Vidal. Really was a hurting move there. But Josh Allen, 30 points for me. Derrick Henry, 13. I got 22.6 out of Marv in that game against the Cowboys. Very exciting to see there. I mentioned Colston Loveland getting that pass at the end of the game that won it for them. Man, if I won this one, that would have been a waiver warrior of the ages. Got almost 30 points out of my plug-and-play tight end there. Happy about that. Picked the right matchup there, and it got me. That move directly netted me a median win this week. So very, very happy about that. Jalen Warren's been great, and I'm expecting more great things out of him in the future. But wasn't quite enough to overcome the Apple Bottom DeJeans. Got a decent week out of Drake May, almost 20 points. Got 16 points out of Devon Achane. Got a touchdown in garbage time from the Chiefs for Kareem Hunt. Only 2 points out of DK Metcalf, but 17 out of Justin Jefferson. He got 12 out of Travis Kelce, even 15 out of Josh Downs. And Rashid Shaheed, who's just been traded to the Seahawks, scored 12.8 in his last game as a Saint. Xavier McKinney was the big deal for him there, as well as Foyesade Oluokun, getting him 35 points out of his IDP spot in a matchup where you only win by 6. That's a huge deal. Very, very lucky week for Corey, getting that interception, forced fumble, everything out of Xavier McKinney, who's been his backup IDP option all year. Getting the start because Cooper DeJean's on bye. So good job from Corey there. He gets the win on this one. It was his birthday this week, and he takes home the 2-0. You're welcome, buddy. I'll let you let you win on this one. 1-1 for me here, bringing me to 8-10, and 2-0 for him, bringing him to 10-8. Things are still pretty close on that. All right, let's talk about the last matchup of the week. It was the 69ers versus El Presidente, Lord Biden. It was a close matchup. Neither of these got the median as well. Pretty low scoring here.
Wet Noodle Fight of the Week.
We got another double wet noodle fight here. Wasn't quite as wet as the one we were just talking about before. So if there was only one, I'd give it to the previous one. But these guys both missed the median as well. The Colts lost to Pittsburgh, and Jonathan Taylor didn't score a touchdown. So that's kind of the story with Alex's team. He goes as the Colts do. Did manage to win the matchup, but again, missed the median there, and that would be part of it. Kyron Williams got about what he was projected, but he was one of the only ones. Sam Laporta was good too, but that and TJ Watt. Other than that, it was, Dodson for his defense, not great for him this week. Deebo Samuel only 9 points. Tyron Tracy only 6.7. Zay Flowers with 11, CeeDee Lamb with 15. Just a lot of disappointment through here and a lot of red. Not as much as Nate's team, though. Aaron Rodgers not really doing it for him here. Travion Henderson did get some action, but they still took him out on the goal line for guys they just elevated off the practice squad. I don't know what the deal is with that, but Travion Henderson at least getting some action there. Chase Brown getting 20 points. That is fantastic stuff. Rashee Rice, 18.6. And then his IDPs combined for a good 26 points there, but only 5.5 out of Charbonnet, 7 out of Chris Watson, 8.6 out of Zach Ertz. Yeah, a lot of red over here too, and 14-point week out of your quarterback really was just about enough to do it. You could have picked up Jacoby Brissett off waivers and won this one, but not quite here. It's 0-2 week for Nate, going to 5-13, and a 1-1 week for Alex, going to 13-5. All right, that is the matchups for the week. Let's take a look real quick at the little efficiency metrics. Oh, I didn't take those this week, but I always like to bring up that Chris has just had a tough time this year with the guys on his bench. He's still benched Rico Dowdle, still benched, Marquise Hollywood Brown, and those guys definitely could have done some good stuff for him there. It was never going to be enough to beat Ricky this week, but always funny to kind of stick it to Chris there. Let's take a quick look at the standings here and see how everything is shaken out heading into week 10 and into the deadline. We got Alex in first and followed closely by Sal in second. They're both at 13-5. We've got Artie at 12-6 in third place. Fourth place belongs to the FBI. Ricky is at 11-7 there. Corey in fifth place at 10-8. We've got Dylan in sixth at 9-9. Seventh belongs to, I think sixth actually belongs to Chris, who is 9-9 and has scored more points than Dylan. But we've talked about how the ties are kind of affecting the way the standings are laid out. But if the season were to end today, Chris would get into the playoffs at 9-9 here. Followed shortly by the Ball Hogs at 8-10. Then the Bower of London is at 7-11 in ninth place. 10th place, we've got Leemon at 6-12. And then tied for last, we've got Riley and Nate, both at 5-13. Some pretty close stuff here. You can see, 7-11 and 11-7. That's pretty darn close. 2 weeks, all of this could be swapped around. We still got 4 more weeks of regular season fantasy football to get this all shaken out. And these people are definitely playing for their lives right in the middle. In my head, once you reach 14 on either side, you got to basically at least go even to get in. You'll see that the 9-9 teams are both hovering right around that cutoff line. So theoretically, if you were to finish the season 14-14, this is right around where you'd be. So if you hit 14 wins here, you're probably going to the playoffs. And if you hit 14 losses before the end of the season, you're just probably not making it. 15 is pretty much a shoo-in on either side. So it would be interesting to see if either these guys get a 2-0, that pretty much seals it for them. If either these guys 0-2 this week, that pretty much seals it for them, that they're not making it. And a lot of these guys in the middle trying to differentiate themselves still and make that run into the playoffs. To see how people are setting up for that, we got to take a look at what has been changing this week. I mentioned it's the deadline, so some trades have been flying. Why don't we get over to our waiver wire and trade segment, and we can discuss it a little further. Let's do it.
Waiver wire and trades.
All right, this was the first set of trades from the week here. Ricky trying to pick up Bengals quarterbacks. And it's because he lost Jaden Daniels this week. Jaden Daniels dislocated his left arm, his elbow bent backwards. It was really gross to watch. And now Ricky was either relying on Caleb Williams or making something else happen, and he said he wasn't comfortable just relying on Caleb Williams. So he's got the Bengals quarterback for the future here, whether it's Joe or Joe. And he traded Darnell Mooney to Dylan and Dylan Sampson to Chris in order to get that done. He's also made a big trade here with Chris with a few other guys. Bijan Robinson changing hands, Christian McCaffrey changing hands, Rico Dowdle and Matthew Golden also being moved, Calvin Ridley and Brian Robinson mixing that up as well. A little B Robinson for B Robinson trade action here. I personally would rather have Chris's side. RBs have been hard to come by. Rico Dowdle has started a total of 3 games so far this season. He's been a backup in the other ones, and he's, I believe, 3rd most rushing yards in the league so far. So he's just been absolutely on fire, and the Panthers have named him the starter going forward. So Ricky getting 2 startable running backs out of this deal for trading the 1 startable running back and Christian McCaffrey out. But CMC is still on fire this season, been scoring a ton, and I can see why Chris would want to kind of get the consistency into one guy here. So this wasn't really a final deal because some other guys moved. We had Ricky still making some action happen later on. First, let's talk about Leemon trading Josh Jacobs, who he just acquired a week or 2 ago, for Tet McMillan and Ashton Genty. A little 2-for-1 action. Leemon needed some depth, and Sal wanted to consolidate. A good deal for both sides. It makes a lot of sense. This is the deal I was talking about. Rico Dowdle changing hands again, moving around the league this week. Javonte Williams and Chris Godwin heading over to Ricky's team in exchange for Jordan Mason, Jamison Williams, and Rico Dowdle. A J. Williams for J. Williams trade here. We got a B. Robinson for B. Robinson trade and a J. Williams for J. Williams trade. You guys just love trying to confuse me with these ones, but you can't do it. I know them too well. That's Jamison and that's Javonte. We've got, Rico now over to Riley's team. And we'll see if he is able to make anything happen with that. Javonte on bye, and Chris Godwin still hasn't been seen at practice so far this week. So this is a move for the future for Ricky, trading out some of that strength he got to make his run a little easier moving forward towards the playoffs. We'll see if that works out for him here or if this ends up just weakening him this week. Here is the waivers that got put through. Jacoby Brissett being picked up for Eric, like we talked about. He's kind of the starter moving forward for the Cardinals. We've got Alec Pierce getting picked up by Ricky. That was a hot commodity that people wanted to get their hands on after he's been proving he's more than just a deep ball threat recently. Leemon wanted to get his hands on him, and so did Sal, but Ricky coming away with him there. To replace Tucker Kraft, Chris had to pick up another tight end, goes and gets Juwan Johnson and drops Tank Bigsby for it. And then we also got Sal picking up Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews had a big week. He was actually dropped minutes before game time on Thursday by Eric, and then went ahead and scored 16.6 points with 2 touchdowns. So that was pretty unfortunate and comical timing on that. We had Riley trying to pick him up as well, but didn't quite get there. This is going to be Sal's pickup now, and Andrew's going over to him. Had a couple other free agency moves after waivers ran, but nothing too crazy. We talked about Kraft being out, so Luke Musgrave has kind of been a hot pickup this week, and some IDP movement as well. But yeah, a ton of different trades here. We talked about all these little trades happening, people trying to solidify some stuff for the end of the year. And I am all here for it. I want to see exactly what's happening with all these teams, and I hope that the ball hogs can overcome a lot of this shuffling. But to see what's in store for them as well as the rest of the league, why don't we get to the projection preview, and we can talk about exactly what's going to happen in Week 10 in the Dimmadome.
Projection preview.
All right. After Ricky made all these trades, it's the co-host battle. We finally made it here. It's Week 10 for us, and we are getting it done. Right now, I am projected to win just based off the way our lineups are set right now, but we'll see if he gets anything moved around or plugged in. Godwin, I know he wants to plug him in if he can. He's still got Nick Chubb going here. I'm sure he'd like to replace that. He's also flexing Dalton Schultz. Just not a lot of options on his bench right now. This is a ton of zeros for him here. He's mentioned multiple times he's trying to load up for the future, and might be tanking a little bit this week to have a better run later on. We'll see if Bijan Robinson can do it for him there, and if Alec Pierce ends up being a big pickup for him. I'm running back mostly the same stuff that I had last week. I didn't make any moves. I didn't pick anybody up. And I mean, I have depth. I have a few running back choices that I'm making. Right now I have RJ Harvey in tonight's game versus the Raiders instead of trusting Vidal again. I think without Joe Alt, it's tough to try to trust the line for the Chargers, and Vidal kind of suffers because of that. Pittsburgh's defense is also pretty good, so not super looking forward to that matchup. But yeah, I mean, pretty much the same guys going. Harold Fannin is back in because his bye week is over, and they're playing against the Jets, who just traded their whole team away at the deadline. So hoping for some success here. Definitely got to watch RJ Harvey tonight. Got to see what's going on with that. I don't believe Ricky has anybody going in that game tonight here, but we've still got the stage set for a banger. I'm hoping I win this one. I'm sure Ricky would say otherwise. He's got Bijan Robinson going in that morning game. I think, they're playing in Berlin for this one or something like that. The Falcons playing against the Colts, so Ricky's going to have to wake up early and watch that one to see if both of his players are doing it for him there, because otherwise he's going to be in a hole as we get later into the week here. Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen versus Miami, the fear there isn't that he doesn't do well, it's that he does too well, and then they don't end up needing to score a whole lot. So I hope that, Miami brings their A game, and Josh Allen maybe is playing from behind for at some point in that game, at just any point, that would be good. But yeah, Derrick Henry, I'm hoping he's heating up, and Jordan Addison versus Derrick Henry in that Minnesota-Baltimore matchup is important for me there. So I'm projected to win by 3. It's going to be very close. I don't think it's going to be a wet noodle fight, and I'm hoping that I win this one. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, let's take a look at the 69ers versus the Apple-Bottom DeJeans. Corey has not set his team yet so far this week. He's got Travis Kelce out. He's got Kareem Hunt out. Seahawks Shaheed is in his lineup still, which I wouldn't blame him for. I don't know if he has a ton of options on his bench, but maybe could shuffle some things around. Yeah, as of right now, not projected to win. I don't think there's any changes he can make with the way his lineup is set that could fix that, because Alex's team is on a tear and their projections are quite high. He's moving off Daniel Jones and onto Matt Stafford. Stafford's been lighting it up recently. 34, 37, had that one 10-point week, but 31, 33. Yeah, he's been definitely someone to keep an eye on as of late, and Alex has been keeping an eye on him, so putting him in now, hoping to get a big performance against Corey. He's got that stack with Kyren Williams, so whoever is scoring on the Rams, Alex is hoping to be a part of it, unless they just wheel out Blake Corum over and over this week. That would be pretty disappointing for Alex. But other than that, he should be scoring points as the Rams do. They're playing against the Niners again, their second matchup, and they lost the first one against McCorkle. So we'll see if they can do it this week or if it's another disappointing week for the Rams. Either way, that was a good game for Stafford, even though they lost 31.5. Alex is hoping for the same in this one here. Still firing up Debo, Zay, Sam Laporta. Breece Hall is back off of bye, and A.J. Brown as well. He's really at full strength here, man. This is an intimidating lineup. Some scary stuff. He's not at full strength. He's got CeeDee Lamb on bye, and this is still what his projection looks like. My goodness. Definitely a powerhouse in the league and proving to be earning that number 1 seed so far. Got to give him the projected win on this one. Let's talk about the sleepers versus El Presidente, Lord Biden. It's Artie versus Nate in this matchup here. And we've got Jared Goff still going for the sleepers. He dropped Justin Fields. You don't even know if Justin Fields is the starter for the Jets moving forward. That's been pretty tough to watch. But, he's got Goff going for him here in that Amon-Ra St. Brown stack. He's got Swift going versus the Giants. He's got J.K. Dobbins in the game tonight. And Garrett Wilson might finally be making his return for him there. With Rashid Shaheed getting traded, Chris Olave might be getting some more action too. And then these guys have both been great this year just in terms of defensive play. Micah Parsons and Blake Cashman. We'll see if they can turn it into a good fantasy performance for him here. Nate on the other side, not nearly as good in the projections. God, what is he missing out on? This is such a huge difference. Guess he just doesn't have that stud wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown like Artie does. Goff projected more than Hurts this week. Seems wild to me. It's just small differences, I guess. That's a huge difference in projection, but these are two full lineups, and I guess it's just like Slayton and Henderson that are really dragging him down. 117 projected for Nate, 144 projected for Artie. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Artie on this one, at least in my prediction here. Hard to see him losing this matchup with the way everything is set up now. Okay, let's talk about the long-awaited Retard Bowl. It's the Retardinals versus the Retarded YNs. We'll see who can keep the brand moving forward here, who is truly special in this matchup. It's projected to be close, but not that close, with Sal taking the lead early on in the projections here. I mean, he's the number 2 team in the league for good reason. He's got the 2 top wide receivers on the year in Puka Nacua and JSN. And he just acquired Josh Jacobs to shore up his running back depth here. He's got a couple people missing, really just Ricky Pearsall and Kamir DK. But everything else, he's just kind of making do with Rachaad White still. He's hoping that Bam Knight continues to get the lion's share of the carries for the Cardinals. He's hoping that his new pickup, Mark Andrews, can help him this week. Not in the tight end spot, but he's flexing him out because you just can't bench Tyler Warren. So this is what's happening here. Just picked up Devin White as well in the game that's going tonight. He's been great as far as IDPs go. Scoring a ton of points in a bunch of different occasions, only really being disappointing one time this season. So could be a good pickup for him there. On the other side, Dylan has Bo Nix continuing to go here. He's been talking about how all of his quarterbacks are startable, but hasn't started Jackson Dart in 5 weeks. Joe Flacco, he finally shipped out for little to nothing. I think he got Darnell Mooney. Yeah, so he's going to be waiting to see if he gets anything good out of him in the morning in that Colts game. Falcons-Colts International. And he's got Gadsden going in his tight end slot. Malik Washington also getting picked up for him there. He's definitely just trying to make do with what he's got here. Myles Garrett, he could use another 40-point week out of Myles Garrett against the Jets. It's certainly possible because that team sucks. He could get another 5-sack day there. But as things stand, we don't even know if Ramondre Stevenson's going to play this week. We don't really know what's going to be happening with that, and he doesn't really have a lot of options to make up for it. I got to give it to Sal on this one. Might have to make some special betting lines for this year because this has been a long-awaited matchup for everybody in the league. It's exciting stuff. We want to see who wins this one. Ever since the beginning of the year, this has been an interesting matchup to look forward to. All right, let's talk about the Bower of London versus Better Off Gooning. This is Eric versus Riley. Eric projected to take the win here, but only by 3 points. He picked up Jacoby Brissett, and he's slapping him in here. He doesn't have Patrick Mahomes this week, so he had to find a solution, and this is what he's going with. Jacoby Brissett has looked good in the last few weeks and has been scoring some points there, so I'm sure this is what he is looking for, trying to get around 25 points out of him. If he can do that, this could be definitely a good week for him here, and the projection would definitely lean in his favor. But across the way here, he's staring straight at Lamar Jackson for Riley, who has been nothing but great in games that he's finished here. 33 points or more in all of them, in all of the 4 that he's played the full game. So he could do that again this week. That would also bump him up quite a bit. It's really just going to depend on who is getting the good quarterback play, I think. Everything else is remarkably even for projections. Tez Johnson, not quite as good as Michael Pittman in the projection book, but just about everything else is dead even here. That's kind of what's making the difference up here. That and Jacoby Brissett being projected quite a bit less. That's what's going to do it here. My prediction would be Eric's been on a hot streak. Eric is projected to win this one. If he can get 20 plus out of Jacoby Brissett, I think that's all he needs to take this one home. But Rico Dowdle could be a huge difference maker for Riley here. So definitely a toss-up, but I'm giving the edge to Eric. I know, I'm chalk so far. I haven't veered away from the projection favorite, but it's hard to this late in the season. All right, our last matchup here, it's the Homeless Losers versus Chief Trump. Chris versus Leemon. Chris is taking the advantage in this one by a country mile. He still hasn't replaced his quarterback on the week, and he's still projected to win by 10. So if he puts anyone with a pulse in for quarterback, then he should have no problem taking this one home. He's got Pop Douglas for Leemon here. Tet McMillan he just acquired. You know, he needed that depth and traded for it. Got Genty in there. Still has Monungai going. Roma Dunze goose-egged him last week, but we'll see if he does that this week, and we'll see if Brian Thomas does play. He didn't practice on Wednesday, coming off the bye, not coming off the bye. He came and played, and then he left that game early. Tough stuff for him. Yeah, I mean, Chris has CMC now. He's got James Cook still, Lad McConkey, Jalen Waddle, even Jawan Johnson without Rashid Shaheed being there should be a huge part of that offense. Wan'Dale Robinson and Khalil Shakir have been dependable, and his IDPs are 2 of the best in the league. So, yeah, this one, not hard to give to Chris. He's just got to go make a move to pick up a quarterback for the week because no Dak Prescott in Week 10. Leemon has Jordan Love going against Philadelphia on Monday night, so these guys are definitely going to be waiting to see how that shakes out. But Chris might have this one in the bag before then. They got their IDPs playing tonight. That should give us a little sneak preview of this matchup here. But other than that, nothing else going until Sunday. They don't even have anything going in that morning game So it's going to be mostly a Sunday at 1 affair. Oh, no, I lied. Kyle Pitts is going in that one, so we'll see if that ends up working out for Leemon. But yeah, I mean, this is a tough one. Chris is in the middle of the leaderboard, and Leemon's close to the bottom. This would benefit a lot of people, Leemon included, if he could pull out a win here, but it is looking like an insurmountable task. But you never know. If the Panthers just beat the Packers this week, anything is possible. And that'll do it. That's week 10 here. That's the deadline. That is what's happening as we close in towards the end of the season here. There's been a lot of exciting stuff so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of these matchups go. Got some tight ones this week, especially mine that I am really getting nervous about. I want to win. I need to beat Ricky and kind of get myself above this line here, so that's just what I'm thinking. But for all you guys, I did want to say thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube as well, we love you guys. I love everybody in this league, and it's been awesome playing with you again this year. Hopefully we can continue having fun, and I can finally make it to the playoffs for the first time in the league's 5-year history now. But in any case here, hope you guys enjoy the game tonight. It's the Raiders versus the Broncos. Should be a big one. Go Ball Hogs. No go Sorcerers. Down with the FBI. See y'all next week.
Thank you for listening to the DFL Breakdown. Tune in next week for more.